You open your retirement account on a random Tuesday afternoon, not because anything happened, just because it crossed your mind. You haven't checked in a couple of months, maybe longer. And when the page loads, the number is different. Not dramatically different, but different enough that you stop scrolling and actually look. 248,000, or maybe it just crossed 250 and something strange happens, something you don't expect. You don't feel relief. You don't feel excited. You feel suspicious, like it can't be real. Like the market's about to pull the rug out from under you any second, because that's what it's always done before. You close the app and go back to whatever you were doing. You don't tell anyone. You don't celebrate. You just quietly think, is this actually going to hold? I know that feeling. I've had that exact moment. And here's what I wish I'd known then. $250,000 isn't just a bigger number on the same path you've been walking. It's a fundamentally different position. The math changes, the rules change, the relationship between your effort and your money's effort flips entirely, and most of us never realize it because nobody explains what actually shifts at this specific number. That's what we're doing today. My name is Jack. I'm Gen X, same as you, and I spend a lot of time studying what actually works financially for people like us in our 50s. Not the recycled advice designed for 25-year-olds, but real strategies for where we actually are right now. If that's useful to you, hit subscribe and tap the thumbs up. It helps more than you think. Quick reminder, I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial advice. Now let's get into this. Before we get into the math, I need to say something about how our generation experiences financial progress, because it's different from every other generation and nobody is acknowledging it. Gen X is the financially invisible generation. Every headline is about boomers retiring or millennials struggling. Every study leads with those two groups. Every piece of financial content is either aimed at someone with a full pension and a paid off house, or someone just opening their first Roth IRA at 28. We're in the middle, doing the actual heavy lifting of our financial lives, and the entire industry acts like we don't exist. Walk into any bookstore and count the personal finance books written specifically for people between 50 and 58. You'll run out of fingers on one hand. We're the biggest earning generation in the workforce right now, and the financial world treats us like a rounding error, and that invisibility does something to you over time. When nobody's talking about your situation, you start to assume your situation isn't normal. You look at your 200,000 and think, that can't be enough. Other people must be further along. Smarter people would have more by now. Yeah, you internalize the silence as evidence that you're failing. Yeah, when the truth is nobody's even bothering to measure where you are. And here's the part nobody talks about. Yeah, a lot of us spent our best earning years watching our raises barely keep pace with inflation. On paper, the salary went up. In reality, the cost of everything went up faster. Groceries, childcare, property taxes, insurance premiums. The raises looked good on the letter from HR. They disappeared by the end of the month. So even when we were earning more than ever, it felt like we were treading water. And that feeling stays with you, even when the numbers finally start moving in the right direction. If you've built your savings to anywhere near 250,000 while carrying all of that, you've done something remarkable, even if it doesn't feel that way yet. Here's where the math starts proving it. Let's put real numbers on what $250,000 actually does, because it's not just more money, it's a structural shift in how your wealth grows. Think of it like a plane on a runway. The takeoff is the hardest part. The engines are burning maximum fuel, the plane is heavy, and it feels like you're barely moving. That's the first 50,000, that's the first 100,000. You're doing all the work. Yeah, every dollar of growth comes from your paycheck, your discipline, your sacrifice, but somewhere around 250,000, you reach cruising altitude. The engines can throttle back. The plane covers more distance with less effort. Momentum and altitude are doing the heavy lifting now. Not raw thrust. Here's what that looks like in actual numbers. At a 7% average annual return, 250,000 generates roughly $17,500 in investment growth per year. That's about $1,450 a month, produced entirely by your money, not by your labor. Now compare that to what most people actually contribute. The average annual retirement contribution for someone in their 50s is between $6,000 and $8,000. So at $250,000, your money's annual growth is now double or even triple what you're putting in yourself. Read that again. Your money is now contributing more to your future than you are every single year. And next year, that gap gets wider. The year after that, wider still. Yeah, the math is no longer waiting for you. It's pulling you forward. Yeah, below 250,000, you're the engine. You're doing most of the work. Above it, your money takes over as the primary driver of growth. That's not a motivational statement. That's just compound math doing what it does. And at this level, it finally becomes visible. This is why the journey from 250,000 to 500,000 takes dramatically less time than the journey from 0 to 250. Because you're no longer pushing alone. Your money is pushing with you. And it's pushing harder every year. So if the math is this clear, if 250,000 is genuinely a turning point, why do most Gen Xers who reach it still feel like they're losing? Because of a psychological pattern that is almost universal in our generation. I call it goalpost shifting, and it's quietly one of the most expensive mental habits you can have. The 2022 Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances found that the median retirement savings for households between 55 and 64 is roughly $185,000. That means if you're approaching 250, you're ahead of more than half the people your age in this country, significantly ahead. But that never feels true, does it? Because the moment you get close to 250, the goalpost moves. Now it needs to be 300, then 500, then a million. And the financial media feeds this. Every article, every calculator, every advisor throws out a number that's always bigger than where you are. So you never stop to register that where you are right now is actually working. This is the part that hits our generation hardest. We've spent decades being told we're behind. Behind on home ownership, behind on savings, behind on planning. And after 25 years of hearing that message, we internalized it as a permanent identity, not a temporary situation. So even when the numbers shift in our favor, the internal narrative doesn't update. We're still running on the old script that says not enough, not enough, not enough. And that narrative has a real cost. It keeps people from making the smart moves that 250,000 enables. Moves like rebalancing, like strategic withdrawals, like shifting from aggressive accumulation to intelligent positioning. Because if you don't believe you've reached a real milestone, you won't act like someone who has. You're not behind. You're just not used to being ahead. And recognizing this shift, emotionally, not just mathematically, is what unlocks the next phase. But here's where it gets interesting. And this is the number that should completely change how you think about the next decade. Most financial advice frames retirement savings as one long, painful climb. Dollar by dollar, year by year, just keep grinding until you hit some magic number. And that framing works for people who are 25 with 40 years ahead of them. But for us at 55, that framing is actually counterproductive because it hides the most important shift in the entire journey. Here's the part most people completely miss. At 250,000, you cross what financial planners call the crossover point. It's the exact moment when your investment returns, the money your money earns, exceed your personal contributions. Below this line, you're the primary builder. Above it, your money is, let me make this concrete. If your portfolio returns 7% on 250,000, that's 17,500 in annual growth. If you're contributing 6,000 a year to your IRA or 8,000 with catch-up, your money just out-earned your effort by nearly $10,000. Your money just got promoted. It now earns more than you contribute. And here's what makes this transformative for Gen X specifically. Every year past the crossover point, the gap widens in your favor. At 300,000, your money generates 21,000 in annual growth. At 350, it's 24,500. Your contributions stay roughly the same, but your money's output keeps climbing. The engine gets stronger every year without you adding any more fuel. This means the pressure on you, the save more, sacrifice more, work hard, sacrifice more, work harder pressure actually starts easing, not disappearing, easing, because the math is carrying an increasingly larger share of the load. And this is why every dollar between 250,000 and 500,000 matters more than any dollar you saved in your 30s, because every one of those dollars is entering a system that's now running with serious momentum. You spent decades building the engine. At 250, the engine starts running itself. Here's how to make sure you capture every bit of momentum this milestone creates. 3 moves. All specific, all doable in the next 30 days. Step 1, and do this before anything else. Rebalance your portfolio. If you haven't adjusted your investment allocation since you first set it up, and a lot of us haven't, your portfolio is almost certainly out of alignment with where you actually are now. At 250,000, you have real money at stake, and the allocation that worked at 50,000 may be taking on too much risk, or just as commonly, not enough. The goal isn't to get conservative and hide in bonds. The goal is intentional positioning, making sure your stock to bond ratio matches your actual retirement timeline. A common framework for someone 10 to 12 years from retirement is roughly 70% stocks, 30% bonds, but your number depends on your income needs and your risk tolerance. Log into your account this week, check your current allocation, and compare it against where you actually want to be. If your provider offers a free portfolio review, and many do, take it. This single adjustment protects the momentum you've built while keeping your growth trajectory intact. The second thing, which most people have never heard of, calculate your personal crossover number. Here's how. Take your total invested balance and multiply it by 0.07. That gives you your estimated annual growth at 7%. Then compare that to what you actually contribute each year. If the growth number is higher, you've already passed the crossover point. If it's close, you're about to. Write both numbers down. Stick them somewhere you'll see them. On your desk, on your bathroom mirror, in your phone notes. This isn't just math, it's a psychological anchor. Every time you see those two numbers, you're reminded that your money is now doing more than you are. And that reminder, that quiet daily proof of momentum, is worth more than any motivational video on the internet. It rewires the not enough narrative in real time with your own numbers. Third, and this one is specific to our age, build a 10-year glide path. A glide path is just a year-by-year plan for how your investment allocation shifts as you approach retirement. Start with where your portfolio is now and map how it should look at 60, 62, 65, and 67. Each year, you gradually reduce risk. Not by panicking out of the market, but by intentionally shifting a few percentage points from stocks into bonds and stable income funds. Most target date retirement funds do this automatically, but they're built for average people with average timelines. You're not average. Your glide path should reflect your actual income needs, your planned retirement age, and your Social Security timing. Draft this on a single sheet of paper, 1 column per year, 1 row for stocks, 1 for bonds, 1 for cash. When you can see the next decade's investment plan on a single page, the anxiety drops. You're not guessing anymore. You're gliding. These aren't abstract strategies. These are one afternoon moves that protect and accelerate everything you've spent the last 20 years building. Remember that Tuesday afternoon? Opening the app, seeing the number, and feeling, instead of excitement, suspicion, like it couldn't be real, like something was about to take it away. I want to talk to that version of you for a second. And the version of me that felt the exact same thing. That suspicion isn't weakness, it's experience. Our generation learned to distrust financial progress because every time we built momentum, something knocked it down. So when the number finally starts looking real, actually genuinely real, the instinct isn't to celebrate, it's to brace. But here's what the math says, and the math doesn't flinch. At 250,000, you've crossed a line that most people never reach. More than half the households your age haven't gotten here. You did. While carrying everything our generation has carried, the resets, the stagnation, the invisibility, you still built something real. Your money is now working harder than you are. The growth is compounding on itself. And every year from here, the engine gets stronger without you adding more fuel. You don't need to grind harder. You don't need to catch up to some imaginary standard set by people who had a completely different path. You need to recognize what you've actually built and make the 3 moves that let it carry you forward. You spent decades building the runway. Now let the plane fly. Quick reminder, audience, I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. These are patterns I've studied and lived through that consistently work for people in our specific situation. If this changed how you're seeing your own number, drop a comment and tell me, are you approaching 250, past it, or working your way there? I want to know. I read every single one. And if you want to see the paycheck routine that accelerates everything we talked about today, that video is right here.